My name is Commissioner Frank Avila, and I'm a commissioner at the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. And today, as my guest, I have Greg Christensen, president and founder of Organic School Project. Now, Chef Greg Christensen has emerged as one of Chicago's most influential and respected advocates for changing how our kids eat. His work to transform public school cafeteria into powerhouse of nutrition is his mission life. Christensen is concerned with the growing epidemic of childhood obesity and other health concerns. Christensen founded the Organic School Project, a pilot program in the Chicago Public Schools that works with parents, schools, employees, professors, and doctors to help instill healthy habits. I'm glad to have you on our show, Greg.
Thank you.
Because I'm looking forward for you to teach me how to be healthy and good habits so I could teach that to all of my family.
You look pretty healthy. You look pretty healthy.
Well, you know, I became familiar with organic food back in about 3 years ago. My lovely wife said, Frank, we're going to go to a spa. I said, oh, that's great. So I went to a place, it's called the Optimum Health Institute. And it's a place located in Lemon Grove, California. And they believe that you only eat raw vegetables and you don't eat anything that had a mother. And I didn't realize that, but I went, and the first week was hard because we liquid fast Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and we ate raw vegetables the other days. And my kid called me one day, and he says, Dad, how's this going? I said, you know, Frank, I think your mother went nuts. But I lasted the first week, we stayed 3 weeks, and the second week and third week, I got used to it. I came back, and I took my blood test, and I had high blood pressure. I didn't have to take the high pressure pills, and my cholesterol dropped down to 96.
Wow.
And it really helped the way my thinking on one's life and on one should eat. And now look at me. I'm good looking.
Yeah.
I got a good personality, a good dancer, a good singer.
Get a good job.
Good job. And because it's the way one takes care of himself. And this is why I like what you're doing, the Organic School Project. And how did you decide to start the Organic School Project, Greg?
Well, I have a couple of kids, and my youngest kid had bad asthma, and the doctors couldn't help her. She was always going to the hospital, always going to, spending a lot of time in intensive care. So finally we started eating all organic food and going to alternative medicine doctors.
Yes.
And it worked, and she got better. And so my kids were eating all organic food in school every day.
You mean they were bringing it home with them? I mean, to school with them?
They're bringing it to school, and they would tell me about what other kids ate at school.
Yes.
And I, at first, didn't care. And we ate all organic food, and that's what I cared about.
Yeah.
And then a few years ago, I started to care.
You mean you didn't care what the other kids were eating?
Yeah. I didn't care what the other kids ate.
Yeah.
We were eating good.
Yes, yeah.
And my family was okay.
Yes.
But my kids kept telling me about what other kids were eating. And then finally, a couple of years ago, I started to think, maybe I can help. Maybe I can add value to what other kids eat. And so I started to think about how I could do that. And the Organic School Project came to me. And so that's how I started.
Now, was it an easy sell when you went around explaining to the various schools what you wanted to do? I mean, did they understand what you were trying to do?
Well, no, they didn't. The four components to the Organic School Project are kids have to garden to reconnect with their food source, because a lot of them don't know where the food comes from. And they need to get nutrition education, so that's part of it.
Right, yeah.
And then I want them to eat all organic food made from scratch.
Okay.
And then there's a mindfulness component, teaching them how to monitor themselves or how to relax themselves. And so that wasn't an easy sell, to the schools.
Yeah.
I visited a lot of schools.
Sure, because they're cutting back now on gym. They just don't have enough time.
Right.
The teachers are busy teaching them the 3 R's, reading,
Right.
writing, and arithmetic.
And that's what their concerns were. And they asked me, how is this going to help math or the reading scores? And so it was hard to find some schools that wanted to participate. Very hard.
Now, how many years have this organic school project been in operation?
It's been in operation 2 years. I've only been feeding in my first school. I have 3 schools.
3 schools?
Those are Alcott School in Lincoln Park,
Yes.
Hammond School near 22nd in California, and McCorkle School, 44th and State. And
Also, you're on the south side, the west side, north side, so you have a pretty average range of school here in the Chicago school system then.
yes. And I've been feeding at Alcott School for about 10 weeks.
Oh.
And so this project's been around about 2 years, but feeding only for 10 weeks. It's been a bit of a challenge raising the money because it costs extra money to buy the organic food.
Sure, sure.
So next year I plan on starting to serve food at Hammond in September, and God willing, financially, if that comes in, at McCorkle in January. So we'll be feeding at 3 schools hopefully in January for 3 years.
And now, you prepare the food and you show the students all about organic food and preparation, but you don't actually grow it. You have outside distributors that you buy from, vendors that you buy from.
Yeah, they won't. Right now, some of the rules are fairly strict, and I can't bring food that the kids grow in the garden into the cafeteria to cook.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, so that's okay. I mean,
okay.
we like to follow all the rules. So we buy the food from outside vendors, yeah.
Now, are the teachers starting to get involved also? Do you have a do you have a program? You have a program for the students, but it has to involve the teachers also. The teacher have to start learning all about organic food.
Yeah, we talk in the classes monthly, nutrition education and about organic food. So the teachers are learning, and the teachers at Alcott schools, many of them now are eating the lunches. So they're learning along with the kids. They're with the kids when the kids are in the garden. So they're learning about it.
So your food that you prepare have to meet some nutrition criteria, because the federal government or the state or some type of criteria must be handed down to the schools to say this is the kind of nutrition you have to serve every day.
Right.
And this is probably what you're following.
Oh yeah, we follow all the Chicago Public School rules, all the federal lunch guideline rules. We follow all of Chartwell Thompson. We have a subcontract with the current feeder.
Yes.
We follow all their rules. And then there's some unions in the cafeteria. We follow all their rules too. So to answer your question, we follow all the rules around feeding kids in schools.
And you know, organic food, organic vegetables has a higher nutrition value than vegetables that is non-organic, because you know, when they say organic food or organic vegetables, they mean it's a vegetable that is grown organically with no pesticides or nothing harmful for that to grow.
Right.
Everything is all natural, like we used to do it before, when the world started.
Right.
And the way everyone started with farming.
Right.
When we didn't have pesticides around. And this is what you're doing.
Yeah. I think that the most positive food that somebody can eat is from a seed that isn't genetically engineered or modified, that's hand planted in hand tilled soil, and that's hand weeded and hand picked, hand washed and hand chopped and then eaten.
Yes.
So that's the ideal food to eat. So we try in the Organic School Project to get as close to that as we can. So I stay away from talking about healthy food, Frank. when I talk about healthy, it insults the system.
I see.
And so I talk about more positive foods. The last thing I want to do is insult the system. In America, we serve 5 billion meals a year in the federal lunch program.
5 billion?
Yeah.
Oh.
And that system isn't in India or South America, it's here.
Sure.
So we're blessed to have it. And so I'm not about reforming it or changing it or talking about what's healthy.
Sure.
A lot of these kids wouldn't get food.
Sure.
And so, but if I can add value to that working system, that's what the Organic School Project's about.
That's excellent, because, you know, I'm glad you mentioned about healthy, staying healthy, because health doesn't not necessarily mean food.
Right.
Health could be the stress that one has in his life. That affects health.
Yeah.
His mental attitude, his family life, his spiritual life. All of that has a combination of staying healthy.
Right.
And what you're providing is one ingredient to that person to at least eat something during that day.
Yeah, and I'm a chef, and so I'm not a doctor. I can't talk to health.
Yeah.
I can pretend to talk to health and say I know what healthy is, but I'm a cook. So I stay focused on remembering that.
Now, as a chef, did you go to school to learn how to cook organic food, or did you learn it on your own?
Well, I learned it on my own. I had to learn what organic food was and how
And the definition of organic food.
Yeah, and how I did that was I went to farms.
Well, yeah.
Because I'm not a big researcher online.
Sure.
I actually don't even know how to do that. Yeah. And I don't read an awful lot. So my way of learning is to go to farms and talk to farmers. And so that's what I did.
Now, when you went and talked to the farmers, were they located in the Chicagoland area, or were they located throughout the United States?
Mostly in the Chicago area.
Chicagoland area?
Yeah. Within 3 hours.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
And, you know, living in the Corn Belt, you know, they call the area central Illinois, Iowa, the God's country.
Right.
Because in God's country, it rains all the time, and we have good crops here.
Good soil.
Good soil, black soil.
Beautiful soil.
And that's why this is God's country here.
Right.
And we got soybean, corn. I'm Mexican American, and in Mexico, and even here we eat a lot of tortillas. That's our staple.
Right. And
they're exporting Illinois corn into Mexico to make tortillas. It just shows you how well we grow our corn here.
Right.
And so we're living in God's country here. We have the Great Lakes.
It's a great lake.
We're 1% of the world of fresh water. Of all the water in the world, fresh water is 1%. And out of that 1% of fresh water of all the world, here in the Great Lakes area, we have 18% of that 1% of the fresh water right here in the Great Lakes.
Yeah.
So we're living in an area where we have excellent water, excellent soil. We have excellent chefs like yourself that are willing to take a chance, because there might not be a big market for organic food yet.
Right.
And you mentioned you're in 3 schools. How many more schools are you planning to be into in the next future?
Well, you know, that's a hard question. I want to attempt to add value to the system.
Yes.
And there's a lot of players in the system that are very good at what they do. And I don't think that adding more schools will necessarily help add value to the system.
Okay.
I'm interested in the big food companies getting some more money so they can feed more positive foods to the kids. We don't put enough money into school lunches, and so there's not going to be a lot of change that can happen system-wide until more money comes to the system. And when more money comes to the system, the big companies know what to do with it. And people at Chicago Public Schools, they know what to do with it. They're very good at what they do.
Yes.
And so I don't think they necessarily need or want me, you know, to go to more schools.
Sure, I understand.
It's a model.
But it's a model, and everyone's learning from
right.
it.
That's my goal.
Yes, and once you set up the model, the school will incorporate that within their own system and maybe spread out through the other schools.
Right.
And it's just a model for them to say if this is going to be successful or not.
Right.
And you're talking about the dollars to help grow the system, is that they need more money. That the money probably comes from the federal government.
It does.
And then it
goes to the state.
Goes to the state. From the state, it goes to your local school districts.
Right.
There, and so it's all funding, and everyone is everyone has a funding problem.
Right.
There.
So I'm hoping that they see that the future, what's coming in the future with kids' health is someone's going to notice, or more people are going to notice that it's looking bad.
Yes.
You know, the kids are getting bigger, they're getting more diabetic, they're getting more asthmatic.
Yes.
And we can continue to, you know, it's easy to blame the parents.
Now, is it they're becoming diabetic, asthmatic because of the food that they're getting, less exercise? It must be a combination of everything.
I think it's a combination of everything. And I can't address everything, but I could talk about the food in schools.
Yes.
You know, other people are talking about exercise.
Yes.
And so this is the piece that I've chosen to try and help.
Yeah, you know, they made the Lake County Health Department here in Illinois made a study a couple years back, and they were concerned because the beaches were being closed. Yeah. And they were saying that the beaches are being closed because the raw sewage was going into Lake Michigan. They were flaming the sanitary districts. And so they went out and made a study, and they were finding out who was creating the E. coli. That's how they closed the beaches, because of the concentration of E. coli.
Sure.
So they went out and they were concerned about who was pooping on the beaches. So they went out there and collected poop from all the animals. As a human being, we use the restroom.
Right.
And they sent the samples to the lab. They brought it back, and they found out that the seagulls had a higher concentration of E. coli. The geese had a lower concentration of E. coli. Then they said, well, what kind of food is the seagulls eating? And the seagull eats the garbage from the garbage can. You know, right. You go out on the beach, you have your food, and you don't wrap it properly, or they don't cover the garbage can, or you have your fast food restaurants nearby, and they dispose of what they buy. And that's what the seagulls were eating.
Wow.
The geese, on the other hand, had a lower concentration of E. coli. And the geese eats grass. and so I don't know if it tells us that we should eat more grass.
I like that.
But the number one killer in our society for male is heart attacks. Right. And for women, it's heart attacks also. And heart attacks is caused by maybe a combination of stress and the food you eat. Right. Probably. And so what you're doing in the schools is you're trying to introduce on eating properly, so when they get older, they don't get maybe a heart attack, or maybe they'll live longer, but they may be on a lot of pharmaceutical drugs. Right. And I think that's what you're trying to promote.
It is. It is. That's exactly it. The kids need every advantage that they can get to be model citizens. Yes. You know, I've traveled parts of the world like you have, and some of the world needs our help. Yes. And if the kids continue to get sicker, we're not going to be able to help anybody. Even if some of our communities need help, and some of our families need help, and these kids want to help, but if they're so sick so young, and that continues, they can't help anybody. Right, because and if they get sick at an early age, it stays with them throughout their life. And as you mentioned, the schools are looking for how to improve their education. Right. And maybe by staying healthy, by eating proper food, and relate, it helps them
getting a good education and learning in school
That's-
and helping society.
That's what I think. And I'm trying to work in the system because that's where the powerful transformation will happen. It won't happen from the people attacking and blaming. That doesn't get you anywhere.
No, look, I think everyone in the school system that has a part in providing the food to the kids in the school system will realize that, yes, and they have families also.
Yeah.
And they'll probably realize, yes, if we provide this type of food, it's going to help my kids, it's going to help their friends, it's going to help society. And yes, let's change the way we're providing the food. I agree with you on that.
And so far, I can only totally thank Chicago Public Schools for giving us this opportunity. They are taking a big chance by letting me feed some kids. And so I really respect that.
So the Organic School Project is funded how again now?
I raise money. I ask foundations for money, people for money, and companies for money. So it's a non-for-profit.
Yes.
And that's how we do it.
And you know, to go out and provide funding to your project, the foundations, the company, or whoever wants to contribute to a nonprofit group, before they contribute, they want to understand what am I contributing to.
Yeah.
And maybe they have to be educated also.
Well, they do, because currently I need a lot of money to make that all-organic meal. Much more money than is currently spent on a meal in America
Sure.
or in Chicago. And so it's not sustainable. And they have a problem with that.
Yes.
So it's not sustainable. Why should we help?
Yeah, and but the organic food on one hand and the non-organic food on the other hand, the value may not be in monetary value, but the value might be in the nutrition of the organic food versus the other kind of food. So maybe that extra 50 cents per meal might provide 500% more nutrition in your organic food, which will relate to better health and in our society, better, less public service to that type of group.
Right.
That is eating that organic food.
You might not see it tomorrow, the benefit.
Right.
But you might see it over a life. You will. I think you will see it over a lifetime. But the foundations don't work like that. You know, they want it to be sustainable now.
Sustainable, yes, yes.
And so it's been a challenge to. It's been a challenge.
Yes.
You know, and I've never done this before.
Yeah.
I own catering companies,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you know, I'm a chef.
Yeah.
And so I thought that finding the schools would be easy,
Yes.
and I thought raising money would be easy.
Yeah.
And I've learned, you know, maybe a lot of good things aren't always easy in the beginning.
And you know,
And that's okay.
yeah, it's okay because you know this is organic food is just starting to come about right now, and we need more public information. So a lot of your people, a lot of your groups out there will start understanding the benefit of good food, and because our government did change the pyramid,
Right.
right? A couple years ago or last year, they did change that pyramid on your type of foods with your basic food, and then as you go up, your less kind of food.
Right. They haven't changed the nutritionals, though, in the schools since 1986.
1986.
So they're like over 20 years behind changing that. And there's some other things that could be looked at. So the government's trying.
Yes.
But, you know, as you know, working in a big system, things take time.
Oh yeah,
Things
right.
take time.
Yes, yes. We started our deep tunnel project in Reservoir back in 1976,
I remember.
and we just completed boring all of the tunnels, 109 miles,
Wow.
after all these years, over 25 years.
Yeah.
And now we're trying to complete our reservoirs, which will take another 10 years.
Yeah.
So it takes time to
Yeah.
work on a large project to benefit the community, to benefit our flooding and pollution.
So I practice patience,
Yeah.
and I ask the people that work for me to be patient.
Now, how did you find the people to help you run the Organic School Project organization?
Well, they came to me. I only have 2 employees.
Yes.
I don't get paid. It's a selfless service project
Yeah,
for me.
okay.
And they came to me and said, "Can I help?" And a lot of people have come. People like Wanda that was just
Yes.
here. She's a volunteer for me.
Yes.
I have a lot of volunteers that help.
So there's an awful lot of good people out there that want to help society.
An awful lot.
Yeah.
And for Chicago Public Schools to let me into the system, I mean, that's just a huge thing. So they want to see what works from this project.
Yeah, you know, Greg, I'd like to ask you a question. If there's one thing that people or you could do in organic, what would that be? If there was one thing.
I tell people on a physical level to drink the liquids. So drink organic milk and juice.
Organic?
Just start there.
Yes.
And try it for a month. And don't even believe me. Just try it.
Yeah.
You know. And on an emotional level around food, I think that people can get to know a farmer. Go to a farm. Go to a farmer's market. Buy something from a farmer and then go back to that farmer and get to know that farmer. You'll feel really good about that emotionally. And on a spiritual level, I tell people to forgive. You know, we have a situation now where there's lots of factory farms and industrial farming and lots of processed food.
Yes.
I'm not saying that that's all wrong, but it's kind of going that way in a fast way, and we're leaving a huge footprint on the planet. You know, a huge footprint with pesticides and herbicides and garbage from all the packaging. And so we need to forgive ourselves, I think, for, you know, letting it get to this point that we have to start to work backwards now.
Yes, you're right. We got to work backwards, so at the front end we could help us at the back end when we are up in age,
Right.
that we're healthy, that maybe there's no one to take care of us but ourselves. Insurance is so expensive. Living is so expensive. What is your advice for other parents that want to keep their children healthy, and happy?
Cook meals and eat together as much as you can.
Eat together, yes.
Eat together. Eat as families.
As a family.
If you can afford organic food, buy that.
Yeah.
Living creature.